Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, who's ever watching. Once again, welcome to Embrace the Mirror. I am Naomi Sodomin, and I am so grateful and so honored to be back with you with one more amazing video. And today, joining me, I have an amazing coach for you, and her name is Kathi Prager. Am I saying that right, Kathi?
You are saying it perfectly, my
All
dear.
right, Kathi Prager. She is the author of a revolutionary 3-month webinar program, and it's called Healthful Lifestyle Academy. So I want to thank Kathi first off for taking time out of her busy schedule to join us today for this amazing conversation. So Kathi, I'm going to have you introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi there, I'm Kathi Prager, and I'm a holistic nutrition counselor, and I am so excited to be with you today about an exciting topic.
Great. So can you tell them what your topic is about today?
My topic today is about how our unresolved emotions affect our health and actually manifest in physical ailments.
Wow. So guys, I know a little bit about unresolved emotions because as I told you before in many of my video series that I had a lot of issues growing up. You know, I had issues with my mom. I had issues in every relationship. And so I had these unresolved emotions. And what we find, and the reason why I brought Kathi on is because what I found giving my background in healthcare is that when these emotions are not resolved, then they cause illnesses in our body. So Kathi, in your professional opinion, can you tell me what are unresolved emotions? Give me a definition of unresolved emotions.
Unresolved emotions are any emotional baggage that we carry. There is research that actually says that we carry emotional baggage for generations back. So we even carry stuff that our ancestors have gone through. And so sometimes we may not even understand what our unresolved emotions are. And we have to dig really deep to find out, you know, why maybe they're affecting our health in different areas. So sometimes it can be a long process. And sometimes it can be very short when you're dealing with somebody who suffered a lot of heartache. And then like my mom all of a sudden has heart issues. You know, they really do go hand in hand. And people are always astonished when, you know, we do a little work on that. And they're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense now.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is heartache, right? Because this whole series is about unhealthy relationship. Do you believe, in your professional opinion, that when we're in an unhealthy relationship, right? Let's say, for example, I'm a woman, I'm married, I'm in a marriage for 10 years, and it's been 10 years of struggle, right? We don't get along, we fight, we're having financial problems. Do you think that these type of unhealthy situation causes us to have these emotions that we have not resolved over the years? And do you believe that affects our health?
Absolutely. If you think about Dr. Emoto, who did the study of water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at water that when you said beautiful, nice things to certain water, it actually turned into beautiful crystals. And you took that exact same water and you said to it really hurtful, ugly things. And then you look at it under the microscope and the water that you say hurtful things to becomes a big blob. And this has been made over and over and over again. And these tests have been done. So when you consider that we're 75% water.
Right.
Negative emotions, negative words, any kind of negativity that we are using with self-talk, abusive relationships, actually is equally as acidic as the food we eat. And, you know, with all of our information we know now,
Well,
acidity causes cancers and chronic disease.
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned about, I never saw it that way. I never looked at it as, we're 75% of water or 70% of water. And then if we take, all of the hurtful things, right? When somebody, when your spouse or your mom, somebody call you stupid and it hurt your feelings, right? And somebody says you're ugly, or that was one of the things that I had to deal with when I was a child. I was constantly constantly being told, because I'm the darkest one in my family, I was constantly being told how ugly I was because I was dark, right? And so I
Right.
had these emotions. And I'm glad you mentioned about the acidity and the cancer, because, my background is in healthcare. And for 15 years, I was a registered nurse in a critical care environment. And I saw a lot of cancer, I saw a lot of illness. And what people don't understand is that these emotions are also affecting the illness. So what do you believe? Where do you believe these unresolved emotions started in the first place?
A lot of times I think that they start in our childhood.
Wow.
In fact, I was just listening to another conference with Susan Steinbaum,
Mm,
and she is a heart specialist, and especially with women. And one of the statistics she gave out was that since women have entered the workplace, heart disease has increased dramatically. In fact, 1 in 3 women will get heart disease now. Why? Because we have taken everything on.
right.
We're
Yeah.
not having the time to relax and take care of
Yeah,
ourselves.
that's a great point, because we as women, we're in relationship with everybody, right? We're in
Yes.
relationship with our children, we're in relationship with our girlfriends, and as a matter of fact, as I'm doing this video series, I got some girlfriends are going, "Did you go see Lamb of God?" And I'm like, trying to handle this busy period of my life as I'm trying to promote and get my message out. So I'm also in relationship with my girlfriends, right? And then I'm
Yes.
in a relationship with my husband and my 4-year-old son, who constantly need mommy. And
Yeah.
so then when you go back and you add going back to the workforce with all of these relationship issues and all of the problems of every day,
Yeah.
it does make sense that heart disease will be one of the number one things. And I have to tell you, from my experience, what I've seen in healthcare is heart disease is one of the fastest killing, but most so for women.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
I don't know, what I'm going to ask you this question. Do you believe it's because we as women, our emotions are more sensitive? Because I always wonder why, a male can come in and they have a heart attack and they get better a lot quicker, but I see women struggle a lot more. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I think it is. And I think one of the things that interesting about it is women, there are 68% of women, there are no symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, oh, like all of a sudden, bam, it gets too much. The
Right.
overload happens. And and because of the lifestyles that people are leading now, they're not looking at the early on signs.
Mm-hmm.
They're waiting until a crisis instead of way back going, wow, I don't have time to breathe. I am not getting the oxygen into my heart
Right.
to even, and that happened even to me. I actually ended up with a lot of grief settled into my heart.
Oh, great. So I'm glad you kind of you just touched on grief, because I was just going to ask you, because some people are sitting out there and they're watching these, they're like, "What are these two bimbos talking about? Unresolved emotions? What are they?" Can you
Oh,
give us some example of unresolved emotions?
all right. I'm going to give you a personal example
Okay,
of
sure.
unresolved emotions. I probably should have got a Kleenex. I thought about that.
Oh.
Um, in 2012, actually, it was the Christmas of 2011, my son's father, who my son was 9 at the time,
Hmm.
his father had a traumatic ski accident,
Mm-hmm.
and which eventually led to his committing suicide.
Mm.
So through very, very many, 3 years, I have had to work through the emotional pieces of
Mm-hmm.
his loss. And I lost my brother in 2007 to cancer. So
Mm-hmm.
these are very real, emotions for me. One of the things that happened to me a year after Michael's death was I ended up with fibromyalgia.
Mm-hmm.
And as always happens in my life, I end up with some kind of a natural medical because I tend to go to natural healers. So I end
Mm-hmm.
up with a natural medical reason for this. But I also see people who sort of see this unresolved emotional stuff. Somehow they see it in other levels.
Right.
So, the lady I ended up finding to heal the fibromyalgia, she's like, "Oh my gosh, you are stuffing all of your pain in your legs,
Mm-hmm.
and in your arms." And it really had stopped me. And the grief had stopped me on an emotional level, but on a physical level, because there was so much pain attached with that. And watching my son bawl his eyes out, pound the floor, and really go through this devastating experience. Um, I ended up with this fibromyalgia where I really couldn't move,
Yeah.
and I had to start clearing this emotional baggage off of me. And at one point, this was one of the most interesting things. Is she said, "Holy cow, you need to use rosemary oil." And I am a user of essential oils for emotions all the
Mm-hmm.
time. And I'm like, "I've never used that oil. Why would I use that?" She said, "You have so much grief on your heart.
Mm-hmm.
That rosemary oil is going to help release it." Well, what I
Nice.
had never told her was I was having trouble breathing.
Wow. So one
And
thing leads to another.
one thing
You
leads to
start
another.
getting, So I want to take a minute and kind of give the audience a feel of what unresolved emotions are. So we're saying anger is one of them, correct?
Anger,
Pain,
uh, pain, heartache,
frustration, would that be one?
frustration, almost any feeling you have can be an unresolved emotion.
Mm-hmm.
If it is a negative, it is an unresolved
So if it's a
emotion.
negative, did you guys hear that? The focus is if it's a negative. So if I am disappointed with a relationship that I'm in, right? I'm
Right.
I'm disappointed because I got a divorce or it's just not working out. Is the disappointment considered unresolved emotion?
I think that the point is, what do you do with that emotion? Do you take
Ah,
it and do people gnaw on it and keep that negative energy going? Or do you actually forgive, let go,
mm-hmm.
and heal that emotional thing? Because, we all know that that stuff festers and it comes out some way. And if we don't heal that emotion, we move to our next relationship making that same mistake. And
Ah,
so if we're not having some kind of a reflection on what are we bringing to this relationship that we keep manifesting, then we're going to keep manifesting the same thing over and over and wonder, what are we doing here?
right, right.
So we really have to dig a little deeper at, no, it wasn't just this person because I chose this person.
Right, right, exactly. So, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I've had one of the experts on there and we talked about triggers yesterday.
Yeah.
We talk about the triggers, and for me, I was married before and I've been in bad relationships, and there are things that, I would say to my current husband, don't say that to me
Right.
because that's a trigger, right? That's something
Right.
and I realized that I needed to work on that, to work on those emotion and understand that my current husband is not the same person.
Yes.
And when he's saying these things to me, it's coming from a different place, and then I have to deal with him as a different person. So basically, before we put ourselves out there, because I have friends right now that had past relationships and they want to manifest Mr. Right, but then they keep manifesting pretty much the same guy, right? And
Right.
so so I want to get it clearly so the audience can hear it. So until we deal with these emotions, and sorry guys, I forgot to turn my cell phone off. Shame on me. So
Glad it's
until we
you.
deal with these emotions, then we're not able to move forward.
Exactly. And we will continue to repeat them over and over and over again because they're lessons for us to learn in life. And if we don't take that step, and that's part of our problem, with just our whole lifestyle right now and our health is we're not taking the time to look at the clues that, hello, we need to change. We need to change our health. We need to change our emotional state. We just need to change in general so that, we can be healthy. And you can't just take one part of the system, oh, I'll just eat healthy and that's going to do it, because you can eat all the alkaline food you want.
Right.
But if you are not taking care of the emotional piece,
Right.
it's just the same as having a terrible diet.
Yeah. And I think that was my motivation for putting this video series together, is because I've been looking at a lot of my friends, and they're wanting to get married again, or they've been in bad relationship, and they want to manifest a better house, and they want to manifest a better stuff, just nicer life, peace, love, joy, name it. They want to manifest it, but then they're having such a hard time. And then when we would sit down and start talking, the ex-husband comes up. Oh yeah, he's a jerk. I'm so pissed off with him. Right. Is that an unresolved emotion?
That's an unresolved emotion, because honestly, who he is should, at this point in time, should not be affecting us now if we're not in relationship. Right. Like the most healing moment of when I was very, very angry at Palmer's, my son's dad,
right,
when he committed suicide, because it hadn't been the best relationship.
Right.
And it's like, oh my gosh, here you go. You did it to us again. And I was so angry about that. I was so ashamed of being angry about that too.
Yeah.
And the healing moment came at a grief retreat that I was out, and I poured my heart out to this group I had been with for about a year. And I admitted my anger, and I admitted the shame about my anger. And that moment, and being able to admit that was my healing point. And that was the moment I was able to move on and let go of that and embrace the love and embrace what pain he was in, because it wasn't really about me. It did affect me, but it wasn't about me. It was about the pain he was in, and honoring that was his pain, and I didn't have to carry that pain and that anger and that. And I didn't want my son to see me carrying that, and I didn't want a role model that's how we do it. And my son actually was way more graceful at it than I was. He was.
Well, I named this video series "Embrace the Mirror," because I want us to look in the mirror as women or men, because I've had some guy friends that just told me, so you're doing this video series and it's all for women, but you've also helped me with my own father.
Yeah.
So don't worry, ladies, I got a couple of guys coming on, and we're gonna hear relationship from their perspective. But anyway, getting back on task here, we want people to accept the anger, right? Because for me, the way I grew up was not the ideal situation. And so for a long time, I was really angry at my family. I was angry at my mom because she worked all the time. She wasn't around. And I never really honestly faced it, And so it wasn't until my life started falling apart and nothing was working out. And then I went into counseling, and I had to get counseling for my anger because I was getting really out of control. I had like outbursts at people at work. I had outbursts at, my boss. And so I became an issue. And like I said, one day I woke up and I had this aha moment. Wow, my life is a mess. All my relationship is a mess. So something's gotta be wrong. And I made it for the first time to go see a shrink, right? And so that's very an embarrassing thing. We don't want to go see people because we don't want to really, I guess what I'm asking you is, do we not want to go see someone or talk about our grief or talk about these emotions because we're embarrassed, or because of the stigma attached to it? What's your professional experience with that?
Well, I think that people don't want to sit and they sit in the muck, and they'll sit around and gripe and moan and the blah, blah, blah. They'll sit in the muck. But when it actually comes to talking about it, sometimes it's hard to take action. And sometimes it's hard to look at that stuff. There are some very powerful, ways to do that. Bradley Nelson's emotion code is a very, very powerful, powerful tool. If you can use that kind of a tool,
Mm-hmm.
I have done some of my deepest work and I haven't even had to go in and talk about these emotions. But the way the program works is it leads you, you actually identify, the practitioner identifies an emotional resonance or a heart wall or something that you still have in your cellular structure,
Mm-hmm.
and then they lead you to, you know, a time period maybe, and then you can identify the incident where that might have happened and an age sometimes you need to know, and then they can help you clear that very easily without having to sit around and talk about our abuse every
Right,
day,
right, right,
because
right.
usually
I'm
kind
glad
of
you mentioned that because when I was in my journey, I didn't know there were other people out there that could help me. So naturally, what I did was I went to see a shrink. And so every
right.
day I went and I talk about it, and but I didn't get any result. And so one day I told him, I said, "You know, I really need you to tell me how to get this monkey off my back." And we
Right.
haven't discovered that yet. And it was when I started stepping out and looking at and talking to people and telling them, hey, you know, I am a really angry girl that's about to lose everything I have if I don't
Yeah.
get the anger in control. And I met this lady that says, well, you might want to talk to someone who deals on a spiritual base, and she may be
Yeah.
able to help you take a look at these emotions. So what's the first step? What's the first step? What's the first step can we tell, you know, any woman that's watching right now and she's angry at her ex-husband for either leaving, for, you know, for I don't know, losing her house, committing suicide, being abusive, or just because he's an alcoholic and he just can't take control, and she's really angry, or maybe she's a stay-home mom whose husband gets to go out every day, and she's tired of raising four children by herself, and she's angry, she's upset, she's frustrated. What is the first step can these women take?
I think the first thing is to acknowledge, you can acknowledge that, oh my gosh, I really am angry, because sometimes we operate in a vacuum where we don't even realize
Mm-hmm.
what is going on. The second thing is really to start looking for what will work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that, you know, if it's a relationship with somebody else, is, you know, they've got their own past they're coming with, and so you've chosen that person to learn lessons, and to, you know, for whatever reason it's not working, it is a two-way street. It's not just about them. And so you really have to start taking ownership of who you are and what you've brought to the table and why you chose that person, so that you can start to see, and if it's a pattern, to really look at that pattern and say, wow, you know, in my case, I realized I would choose these men that, you know, on the outside, they loved
Trust
me,
me.
they supported me, but then really when it came to my knowledge,
Yeah.
they thought that was a crock of crap, you know,
Yeah,
even
well,
though,
you know, I know all about pattern. You know, I used to have a joke. I used to say, "Hey, if I have a sign, I must have a sign on my back that says, if you're abusive, if you're a loser, you can't keep a job, please see Naomi." And she will
but
be
you know what?
available,
Naomi, that's beautiful that you said that, because it's about changing your story.
right?
And if you just start to acknowledge that, when I had the fibromyalgia, the reason, I swear, the reason I was able to get over that and find the healer that I knew was going to cure me is it might take me 10 minutes to get up the stairs. I would pull myself up in pain every minute, going, I work perfectly and beautifully. So I just had to start telling myself what I wanted myself to be. And most people are absolutely amazed that I cured the fibromyalgia. They're like, how did you
Yeah,
do that?
yeah. And
Well,
and
I
I have to tell you that's
reprogrammed my brain.
and I have to tell you
I
that's
just,
something that we don't cure. We give you a bunch of pain medication and we send you away because we don't know how to cure it. We're not looking at the causes. And I'm glad you mentioned about acknowledging it. And that was started, my journey is I started acknowledging my anger. You know, I started acknowledging, yes, I am an angry person. And at some point in time, I was okay with it. I used to introduce myself to people and I say, hi, I'm Naomi, the angry lady.
Right. And so you kept manifesting the anger.
Right.
Because you focused on it. You get what you focus on. So
right. And so
you change that story, and you can change that story emotionally. You can change your health story. My newest epiphany was, oh wow, here I am talking about all these, foods people shouldn't eat and blah 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 blah. I'm like, no, you know what? It's just about changing their story that they don't realize.
I'm so grateful you mentioned that. Changing the story, because that's what this video series is about. I want to show everyone, I want to show these women how to change the story, right? Because once we change the story, then we are able to create, right?
Exactly.
We're able to create a better life for ourselves. We're able to manifest what we want, but we can't hold on to this. If I get this correctly from what you're saying, from what you're sharing with us, is we can't hold on to this, to the same story, right? I can't hold on to my story of being abused by my brother and being abandoned by my mom. I can't hold on to that story and then manifest the desired life that I want, right? Exactly. So I got to be able to let go of that story. So what can we do to let go of the story, Kathi?
It's a reprogramming. You're just reprogramming. Start looking for the positive things. Start telling yourself the positive things. If you experience pain all the time, you need, just start looking in the mirror is one of the biggest things you can do, and say, I see joy every day, or I see whatever it is. You have to start focusing on what you want to see. And because if you're always focused on the pain, you will never see the joy. And that's why we have both sides. We have the negative and the positive, but the negative side really shows us how to grow and how to move past that negative. And some of our most brilliant people have really, moved past this super negative situation or something and turned it into the most beautiful thing ever. And that's what it really is about, is us embracing that. It is who I am, but it doesn't have to stay who I am. That's a part of my old story, but I'm writing my new story. And that's the exciting thing. Our genes can change. We can rewrite our genetic story. And if we rewrite our genetic story, it rewrites our story for our children too.
Can we rewrite the story of our unhealthy relationships?
Absolutely.
Can we rewrite the story of the unhealthy relationship we have with ourselves? Can we rewrite that story?
Absolutely. You can start today and change that story. So it's one baby step. It's one, acknowledge, oh yeah, I am an angry person. And, so today you start telling yourself, I deal with my anger in an adult manner every day. Right. I am learning from my anger. I am a calm, cool, and collected person.
Right. What about the person that's watching right now and they're going, well, you just don't understand my mom? Because that was me. That used to be me. You just don't understand my mom. You just don't get who she is. And I know it's all worked out for you, and you no longer have your fibromyalgia and you're happy. You just don't know. You just don't understand. What can we say to them to let them know we've been there and we understand? What can we say? What would you say in your professional opinion?
I would again say that I may not understand everybody's story, as everybody may not understand mine, because I haven't lived anybody else's story. I've only lived mine. Right. Have I had a lot of struggle in my life? Yeah. My adult life in the last few years has been a lot of struggle. I understand what struggle is like, and I understand what it's like to feel like you'll never get out of that. Yeah. But and that it's so dark. It's like, oh, I don't have any friends. I can't get out of my house. I can't go to the gym. I can hardly get out of bed to cook. I've got my son who needs me, and I'm not a good mom. And the story just piles up. Right. But the moment you stop and say, I'm not going to be this person anymore. I want something different and I want something better and I want to see the joy again. It might not be immediate, it might not. I
So,
used to
another
sit
word, what I'm hearing you say that it takes time.
It takes time.
It takes
It
time.
takes time. It is sometimes it's baby steps.
Right.
In fact, I know one of my friends, she said, "Oh, I moved today." I'm like, "Well, that's fabulous. You moved." You know, when I'm in my programs and I'm talking to people about exercise, sometimes it is, well, you know what? I did 5 minutes of jumping jacks while I watched TV. You know what? That is the first step.
Right, right.
The first step is,
I like what you said about baby steps, because when I had my son, after I had my son, I suffered from the whole postpartum blue and
oh,
the
yeah.
whole postpartum depression thing, and I'd cry all the time. And I remember calling up my cousin, and I go, I just can't do this, and I started boo-hicking, and she was as calm as can be, and she says, Naomi, sometimes you gotta take it 1 second at a time.
Yes.
And it dawned on me, whoa, what wisdom. I gotta take it 1 second at a time. And so this is why, guys, we're putting on this video series to help you understand. Like she talks about embracing the mirror and changing the story. You begin to accept that anger. If you accept the anger, and like I said, I walked around introducing myself to people. Hey, hi, I'm Naomi, I'm the angry lady, you don't want to mess with me. Some people would laugh. And I started acknowledging that I was angry. I was angry at the situation that I was born in. And so I started changing that. Tell them some other symptoms going back to medicine. Some other symptoms or illnesses that can come out of these unresolved emotions.
So one of the things that a lot of my stuff manifested through gallbladder and liver, and that can be fear and resentment and things like that we carry around. One thing that always people are amazed by is when they talk about their low back pain.
Yes.
And I will say, are you having financial issues? Well, yeah, how'd you know? Do you feel unsupported? Yeah, how did you know? And I'm like, well, because that's one of the manifestations.
You should be like, I'm psychic.
This financial stuff is that we're just not supported. And so
Right.
literally, our backs are not supporting us because we're carrying this huge load
Right.
that, you just kind of have to shift the load or be willing to let go of the load. I love Louise Hay. Louise Hay has a bunch of her books, and she
Yes,
will
I love
list
her too.
item by
I read her
item.
too. And guys, another great person that I've read, I don't know if you've ever read this book. It's called The Anatomy of the Spirit. The
Oh,
7 Stages of Power and Healing by Carolyn Mess. And she talks about every area of your body where you have pain and what it means. It's like what you were saying about, oh, I have lower back pain. Are you having financial problems? How did you know that? But the greatest thing about all of this is if we leave you with anything today, is that we want you to know that all this stuff is curable, guys. All this stuff can be cured if you simply take the time to look at your life, look at your emotions, look at how you're feeling every day, and the anger, and let it go, or find some help. So in closing, Kathi, can you be so kind and share with them um again what it is that you do, if they need to reach you, how they get a hold of you, and the free gift that you have for them today?
fabulous. I am actually a holistic nutrition counselor or health coach, if you want to call me that, but a lot of people didn't know what that is. One of the things that I did is I have written a 3-month webinar program, which is launching in April. It's been run live before, but I'm going big, big
Whoa,
now.
congratulations.
I've embraced the bigness. And so it is really a program designed as a nutritional program, and we look at emotions in there as well, and how to resolve emotions and get people started on that. It is a lifestyle program to help people reduce their risk of chronic disease by 80%.
Nice.
And because we all fall off the wagon,
Right.
you will have a ginormous notebook of everything you need to know, because we do fall off the wagon, but you will know how to correct yourself, how to right the ship, how to keep your body functioning so you don't have to suffer through chronic disease. And once you have that knowledge, of course, your family will have the knowledge too, and we'll be saving lives all over the world. The free offer I have is actually called Kathi Prager's Top 6 Superfoods for Ultimate
Whoa, I
Health.
love superfoods.
The especially cacao. Talk about one that affects your emotions. That is one of the most fabulous things ever. And a
Right.
fabulous recipe in there with my bliss balls, which will make you so happy you will not believe it. You can get a hold of me at kathyprager.com.
Perfect. And guys, I want you to not only embrace the mirror, but every day as you're watching these videos, when you're done watching these videos, ladies, I want you to go and do one thing that is kind to yourself. And that could just be like trying her recipe and say, "Oh, I'm just going to make this just for me, just so I can feel good about myself today." It could be something as simple as going for a walk, right, Kathi? Anything
Exactly.
that makes them feel good, they should do it. All right, guys, we're out of time. And once again, thank you for joining us. I'm Naomi Sodomin, your relationship coach and your anchor for this amazing video summit. I hope you learned something today. And I'm looking forward to bringing you another great video tomorrow. Have a great night. Blessings.
Thank you so much.